On the 10th of March 2025, on the first Minecraft server to have no rules, I recorded a video at a base. The name of this base is Pyrobyte's Palace. I got the location of this base from a website named the 2B2T Atlas. I would also get the locations of some bases from the archive server or finding the bases by accident. After the 10th of March, I continued to record a video at almost every base I found. The next day, on the 11th of March, I found another base and I made a video at that base as well. The location of this base was not too far away from spawn, and there were old signs there from 2017 and 2018. Two days later, I found the Eiffel Tower on the 13th of March. This location was closer to spawn. On the 14th of March, I found a build made out of cobblestone. And behind the build there was a random canal. On the 15th of March I found a larger base. I was also at this location on the 27th of September 2023. The next day, on the 16th of March, I went to the Southern Canal. And someone made a house on the highway. On the 17th of March, I continued my journey on the Southern Canal, and I found another old base. The next day, on the 18th of March, I was still on the Southern Canal and I found a lava-casted base. I would then eventually leave the Southern Canal to find bases in different locations on the server. Ten days later, on the 28th of March, I found a different base that was on a mushroom biome. And on the 31st of March, I found another base. This base was more far out. Later that same day, I found another base. At this base, there was a tower made out of diamond blocks and glass, and another tower made out of gold blocks and glass. The next month, on the 2nd of April, I found a small house. Inside this house, there was a copy of a book that I made, and there was also a small dupe stash. And the next day, on the 3rd of April, I found another base. At the base, there was 1.21 blocks, meaning the base was not that old. However, the base was still griefed. The next day, on the 4th of April, I found a castle. And inside of the castle, there was a ton of Totem of Undying. On the 5th of April, I found an underground base. On the 6th of April, I found a large base that looks like it was made in a super flat world. Six days later, on the 12th of April, I found a sideways glass cube. This video also got me 23,000 views on TikTok. The next day, on the 13th of April, I found another large base. One of the things at this base was a giant yellow bus. On the 14th of April, I found another base that was made underground. The next day, on the 15th of April, I found a small house. Later that same day, I found another base. At this base, there was an uncompleted glass dome. On the 19th of April, I found another base. This base was made underground out in the millions. Five days later, on the 24th of April, I found another base. This base was also made out in the millions. On the 25th of April, I went closer to spawn and found one of the heads from Easter Island. I also remember being at this location back in 2022. Later that same day, I went to another base. At this base, I was one of the original members back in 2022. The next day, on the 26th of April, I went to another base. This base was quite large. Later that same day, I went to another base. At this base, there was the statue of Jesus made out of obsidian. Two days later, on the 28th of April, I found another base. And at this base, I found a chicken jockey. Later that same day, I found another base. This base was a giant castle, and there was a lava cast going through the middle of it. Later that same day, I found another base. At this base, there was a build of the Wither and a time glass. Two days later, on the 30th of April, I found another base. This was a small griefed base that was made in a plains biome. Later that same day, I found another base. At this base, there was the bedrock comment from Ziggy Town, however, it was made out of obsidian. The next month, on the 1st of May, I found another base. This base was another spawn base made on top of old 2011 chunks. Later that same day, I went to a base named Impspace. Impspace was a base that was made in 2012, however it got griefed in late 2015. There was also a copy made of this base, however I was at the original location. I also placed a ton of signs at this location. Every yellow dot you see was a sign placed by me. The next day, on the 2nd of May, I went to another base. This base was made in a desert biome. Later that same day, I found another base. At this base, there was the Wither Storm from Minecraft Story Mode. The next day, on the 3rd of May, I went to another base. The name of this base was SBA 50 and I was one of the original members of this base. And in the video, I was placing renamed chests in the air. Later that same day, I found another base. And there was a sign saying the lava cast was made by Jared 2013 on the 1st of May 2025. The next day, on the 4th of May, I went to another location. At this location, I placed lava on top of trees. I would then place the renamed floating furnaces. Later that same day, I went to the Valley of Wheat, and I placed more floating furnaces around the ruins. Later that same day, I went to another base further out. And at this base, there was a giant wall of water. The next day, on the 5th of May, I placed more floating furnaces. There was also another base close by to this location. The next day, on the 6th of May, I went to another base. The name of the base was SBA-40 and I was one of the original members back in 2022. Many different things were built at this location at different points in time. Later that same day, I placed more furnaces. At this location, there was a rebuild of Raft Outpost. However, it wasn't the original since it was made at a different location. The next day, on the 7th of May, I went to another base. At the time, it was raining, so I could use the trident to move around faster. Later that same day, I found another base. This base was made in the desert biome. There was also one small lava cast. Later that same day, I found another base. At this base, there was a tower, and at the top of the tower, there was a tree farm. The next day, on the 8th of May, I found another base, and at this base there were multiple buildings. Later that same day, I found another base, and this base was made on an island. On the first island, there were farms and an uncompleted house. However, there was also a second island. Two days later, on the 10th of May, I found another base. This base looks like it was made quite a long time ago. The next day, on the 11th of May, I found another base. This base looks like there were some useful items at this location once before, however they are now all gone. Two days later, on the 13th of May, I entered the end dimension, and I placed down some more floating furnaces around the spawn of the end. The next video that I uploaded goes back in time to the 17th of October 2024. The reason why I recorded the location at the time was because I found other players' ender pearls. And if the ender pearl touches a block, if the player is online, the player will be teleported back to the location. This video also got over 59,000 views on TikTok. The next video goes back to the 13th of May in the end, and I went to the original Space Valkyrie made by Jack the Ripper. I also placed more floating furnaces. The next day, on the 14th of May, I went back to the overworld, and the base that I went to is named Ziggy Town, made in 2012. At this base, there used to be a lot of builds made out of bedrock, however the bedrock is now gone. Later that same day, I went to another base. This base was an SBA base, however, I was not one of the original members at the time of the base being built. Later that same day, I went to a base made out of melon blocks. Three days later, on the 17th of May, I went to another base. At this base, I found another player. This base was also an SBA base, and I was one of the original builders at the time. Later that same day, I found a floating platform made out of sea lanterns, and on top of the sea lanterns I placed a ton of signs. The next day, on the 18th of May, I found another player for the second time in a row. The name of the base that I was at is called New NFE, made by old 2B2T player XCC2. Three days later, on the 21st of May, I found another base. This base was made out of sandstone and oak planks. Inside one of the furnaces, I also put a book that was named 3469. 3 days later, on the 24th of May, I found another base. This base was made on top of a mushroom biome, and at the time I was placing my Minecraft banner around the area. Two days later, on the 26th of May, I found another base. Inside one of the chests there were some totems of undying. There was also a Russian flag on top of the base. Later that same day, I found another base. This base was quite old. There were some signs on diamond blocks that had some old player usernames. And on the other side of the nether portal, the portal was glitched, meaning the portal was made in 2015 or before. One day later, on the 27th of May, I found another base. The oldest signs at this base were from 2017, meaning this base was probably made in 2017. Later that same day, I found another base. This base had a glass dome. Around the base there were some stone walls and there were also some other builds. Two days later, on the 29th of May, I found another base. This base was made in a spruce biome. One day later, on the 30th of May, I found another base. On the outside of this base there was some floating sand, and on the inside of the base there were multiple underground levels. One day later, on the 31st of May, I found another base. The purpose of this base is to make different map arts. Later that same day, I found another base. This base was the base that was made by Housemaster. The next month, on the 1st of June, I found another base. This base was an active base with a player still there, however the player was AFK. So I took all the materials that I could from the base and then I left the base. The next video that I uploaded goes back in time to the 27th of May. The name of this base was SBA 73. At this base, I made an inspired version of Space Valkyria and the interdimensional bridge. Going back to the future to the 7th of June, the server just updated to 1.21, and I enter a trial chamber for the first time on the server. Later that same day, I found a mace. I would then go to a Pearl Oak garden, then I summoned the Kraken. The next day, on the 8th of June, I used a glitch to get on top of the bedrock in the Nether. This was only on the server for a small amount of time after the update. And once you did get on top of the bedrock, you couldn't place any blocks. On the 11th of June, I went back to the world border in the end. I used a glitched end portal gateway to teleport me over 99% of the way. Six days later, on the 17th of June, I ignited a lot of TNT. Since this video is now over 1 hour long, I'm going to be ending it here. However, this is only some of the bases that I have found on 2B2T.